Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And the race to world first has concluded. And with its conclusion, we now have a huge slew of class changes for both PvE and PvP that are going to impact some specializations that I think really needed some love in this video. And if you want to stay up to date with changes related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated on my long-term aspirations of getting to 100,000 subscribers. So thank you for your support. Let's get started here. Frost Death Knights. This is the first time, it seems like in a long time, that you've got a huge wall of text around your name. Now, is this wall of text going to be impactful? Let's find out. Your two-piece set bonus is going to be that the damage of your next Frostworm Fury is increased to 5% from 4. However, the stacks are unchanged. The effectiveness of your Frostworm's Fury has, however, been reduced by 5% from 30, and your Howling Blast damage has been reduced to 10 from 20. Those don't seem very good to me. I'm a bit worried about this. Emir Drasil's 4-set bonus. Chill Streak can bounce 3 additional times up from 2, and the chance to proc a bonus effect has been increased to 35% from 30. Your Chill Streak damage is being buffed by 10%, and your Obliterate damage is being buffed by 8. In PvP, this is likely going to be felt the most. Obliterate is your hardest hitting attack. I think it's like upwards of 30% of your damage, so 8% on that is very big. Enduring Chill chance to bounce has been increased to 25% from 20. And Piercing Chill's damage has been increased to 12 from 10. Now, this is just pure raw tuning numbers. This isn't going to likely affect the gameplay for PvP, unfortunately. It just basically means that your Obliterate goes are going to be slightly harder, is my best guess here. Does that impact your overall viability? I mean, it's going to help you out a little bit, but it's definitely not like a class rework level. Although I don't know if PvE players like the current build of Frost, and that's why it's not being touched for a rework or talked about at all for a rework. But for PvP, I think a lot of people really want some more significant change than this, to be honest. For Druid, we're seeing a 3% healing increase. This will not apply in PvP combat, which makes a lot of sense. Resto Druid is the best healer in PvP. For Shadow Priest, you're receiving a 5% damage increase, but not in PvP, which is still maybe a bit of a surprise. I feel like Shadow is still even not in the strongest spot. I think Demonology Warlock Shadow Priest is probably like your best composition at the moment. So this one I could almost have seen going through, but it's not going to. Affliction Warlock, you're going to be doing 6% more damage, and your pet abilities are going to be doing 6% more damage, but will not be applied in PvP combat. For Destruction Warlock, you are also seeing you and your pet's abilities increase by 6%, but not in PvP combat. So far from the PvE changes, only Frost Death Knight basically receiving more throughput to some of its most important spells. Now, for PvP specifically, for Demon Hunter, Chaotic Disposition talent now has a 33.33% chance, base 7.77%, to increase damage by 4%, base 17% in PvP combat, providing the same average damage bonus with significantly less variance. So less RNG on the overall throughput for this talent means more consistent damage. I honestly don't know if you're playing Chaotic Disposition at the moment in PvP, so let me know in the comments down below if this actually does even have some impact, but hopefully this means likely that the top end isn't as excessive, would be my best guess. For Feral Druid, hey, Feral Druid is another spec that seemingly has been left out on a couple of update windows. Your regrowth healing is now only going to be reduced by 20% down from 43. So this is a 23% healing increase to regrowth. This is likely going to allow you to hopefully stay in cat form more than bear, and use regrowth as a tool to sustain yourself or your teammates possibly. So healing increases to Feral. For Evoker, we are seeing Azure Strike damage increased by 40% in PvP combat. Azure Strike is basically like a snare. I don't even really think of it as like an attacking ability. It's just a snare. Now your snare is going to be doing a little bit more damage. Time stop PvP cooldown reduced to 45 seconds from a minute. Well, that's very interesting. There's a very low cooldown now for that honor talent. And Chrono Loop is also getting its cooldown reduced to 45 seconds. I feel like these talents are very difficult to compete with, like Scouring Flame, especially with how good Resto Druid is, where you pretty much have to take Scouring Flame into Resto Druid. And then the Hover Snare immunity kind of feels mandatory. And then Nullifying Shroud is just really good value. So they're trying to make these PvP talents a little bit more enticing. In this position would be my best guess. Is it enough to actually take them over the quality of life that you get from the other ones? I don't really think so. At least not in the scenarios where they're best, at least, which is pretty much all of them with how strong Resto Druid is. Augmentation Evoker is seeing upheaval damage nerfed by 10%, but eruption damage buffed by 15%. So shifting away from the one shots on the tip of the scales and focusing more on sustained damage, I think, is a healthy place to shift the damage for all of the specializations. Although I was expecting to see maybe a little bit more of this on other classes as well. For Preservation Evoker, Dreamflight healing is being increased by 100% in PvP combat. Mana regeneration is now only reduced by 5% in PvP combat from previous 10%. Now, I don't know if that's enough for Preservation Evoker. Preservation Evoker's really been struggling. I'm really surprised not to see a little bit more here, honestly. Holy Priest is receiving a 6% healing increase in PvP combat. Holy Priest needed a holy lot of help right now, and I don't know if 6% is enough. I would have liked to seen some mana changes around them, because that's kind of their main problem, is that you faster on top of having significantly less healing. Most of my matches at Holy, it was like fighting Resto Druid, I'm 2 minutes faster. The mana regeneration between them was also inconsistent, similar to Preservation Evoker. Seemingly targeting, specializations that need help in this update. I don't know if the changes are really significant enough to kind of, create a lot of change. I feel like this Feral Druid healing, possibly, but nothing too major, I think, from this update for PvP specifically. The Frost one seems to be difficult to read, or maybe I'm misinterpreting it. It just reduced the effectiveness of Frostborn's Fury, reduced to 25% down from 30. That's a nerf, right? And then Howling Blast damage reduced to 10%, was 20. That just seems like a nerf overall. So it seems to me like Frost is like counterbalance, buffed and nerfed. Unfortunately, it's kind of in the wrong direction, like obliterates their hardest hitting attack, and then other abilities are seemingly going to be lower on damage, other than Chill Streak. But Chill Streak was pretty low to begin with. So I would have liked to see a little bit more, at least when it comes to PvP tuning. I haven't been keeping my eyes on Mythic Plus in that scene enough to really, contribute a lot to this factor. But for PvP, I would have liked to seen a little bit more for this. I think it's a little bit disappointing. I think they're targeting the right specs, but needed a little bit more juice for the specs specifically that they have targeted. Overall, I think the changes are in a good direction, though, and maybe we'll have to wait and see as we move from this point. I think Demon Hunter probably needed a little bit more of a nerf as well. Something like Elysian Decree, is still critting incredibly hard, bringing down the top end a bit on some of these hardest hitting attacks. Probably would have been wise as well, unless they're just deciding it's going to be Demon Hunter meta, which could entirely be the case. I mean, if you nerf Demon Hunter, we're pretty quickly getting back to Ret Warrior and Rogue Mage being the best comps overall. So maybe buffing is actually the right move to do here. Buff other things up to that level. Feels bad for the healers, unless they're going to compensate you, because like these healing specs definitely needed love. So I would like to see a little bit more regardless here. But I hope you guys enjoyed this update. Trying to keep you guys going with the changes. And thank you for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.